Valentino here on the next episode of the Badass series. I've been so excited interviewing the women that I have on this show, and today is no exception. I'm super, super excited. But what is the Badass series? The Badass series is a show about women sharing their stories, and it's women who are living on a different level, and they're not afraid to show their badassness. They're out there doing things that require courage, that require them to be bold, and they're showing the world that they have a lot to give. And in so doing, you guys, this is what I really want out of the show. It may inspire you to step up in a bigger way. And so today I've got Miss Carol Boston with me, who is my guest. I'm so excited. Thank you for being here.
I'm excited to be here. I appreciate the invitation. I didn't really know I was such a badass.
Yeah. Well, now that there's another label you can add to your resume. I'm going to tell everybody a little bit about you, Carol.
Okay.
And I got this from your website, and there's so many things you can say about this woman. And then I'm going to tell you how I personally met her. But Carol is the queen of reframe. That is what she calls herself. She is an ex-collegiate and professional tennis player. Just learning that about you, Missy. An award-winning sales leader at Fortune 100 companies with over 27 years of sales leadership experience. And an award-winning speaker who turned your love of problem solving, helping and inspiring others into a growing and respected business as a business leadership coach and change agent. And I'm so excited. I know that's just like a little smattering of your background and all of it. But what I really want to do, Carol, and I'm going to have you dive into that, is really tell people how you came into my life. Because I really do feel like this was like a special relationship. It was like, it was one of those things, you guys. Have you ever had a moment where one thing led to the other, to the other, to the other, and all of a sudden everything is different, right?
Yes.
That's exactly right, Carol.
Absolutely.
Like, yes, like think about those experiences. And so here's what happened. It's a weekday, kids are at home. I'm making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the kitchen. My phone is laying on the island. It should be down and I shouldn't be looking at it. But I happen to walk by the island. I pick up the phone, I look at it, and it says Pam Pryor is on a Facebook Live with Carol Boston. And you click and you're automatically in the live, right? And I see these two women. Pam is a friend of mine. We've worked together. She has an incredible Facebook group, Profit Concierge. We'll give her a shout out because she's doing amazing things for entrepreneurs. And I hear you, Carol. And I hear you telling story after story after story. And the kids are like, Mom, where's my sandwich? And I'm like, I can't. Okay. and then I go in the other room. I'm in the dining room now. I'm like watching this. I'm literally on the floor. I think I had to plug in my phone because it was dying. And I could not stop listening to you. I mean, I was like so mesmerized. 45 minutes later, the kids get lunch and I met my new coach. All right. And you didn't know it. I said, I am working with this woman and she doesn't know it yet. And Carol, you gave out 3 90-minute coaching calls at a discount. And I was like flying on your calendar to try to get, because there were only 3 and I knew there were going to be a lot of people listening to this. And I scheduled it before they were done talking. We had an incredible 90-minute conversation that I think you packed in probably 4 hours of content in 90 minutes.
I'm sure.
You do that, right?
Yep,
And
I do that.
what I will tell you is I have another business. A lot of you know biohacking and nutrigenomics. And that month was an incredible month. And there were a lot of variables that were already in place, but Carol helped me close the gap on what my goal was that month because of that 90-minute coaching call. And I grew my business that month 33%. 33%.
You're the
right?
badass.
Oh my gosh. But I took your coaching and I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know how you spoke to me, Carol. I would study you. You are an incredible coach. And in a short amount of time, you got me to a place. I had to change certain mindset and language, and action steps came from that first, right? The appropriate action steps. And that's what you got me to do. And I was like, high five, sister. And I've never given you a big fat hug in person because you're in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, right?
Yep.
But I just am so grateful to you just for that one experience. truly. Thank you.
You are welcome. I feel blessed to have had the opportunity.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes, it was really cool. And one other thing I'll say, and I don't usually talk this much at the beginning of the interview when it's about you.
I'm
But
easy. Keep going. This is fun.
what I will say is I know that there are a lot, I have friends and in my network, people who like me have a calling and a purpose and a mission like you, Carol. And in this last year, we've been challenged, in building our businesses. And I know in this last year, if I was going to reframe it, I would say it inspired a lot of new ideas. But once you're done, and I've done this before, when I went from corporate as a producer into my own business as coach and trainer and, whatever else, mom, you realize how much you work alone and how much I don't always know the right steps to take. And I think you and I were talking about that in our last coaching session. It is so nice to have a partner who is in it with me, and when you have somebody who knows what you're supposed to do next and can guide you with their own personal professional experience, and you don't have to do it alone, sign me up after a year. So tell me about Reframe and how you work with people. Let's start there, just because we're talking about that 90-minute conversation we had that was so powerful for me.
Back in 2014 in the summer, I had been in corporate sales for 26 years. I'd sold over $70 million in revenue. I'd walked the stages, gotten the awards. I could do it in my sleep. So I thought I had it made until the day I got this call and they told me they were going to cut my territory by 80%. And I thought, 80%? I've been building this territory for 6.5 years, right? So you don't have to tell me twice. I thought they were setting me up to fail. Now, I was a weird salesperson, Edna. I love large corporate structure. Edna hates that word, by the way, structure. But look what it did for you yesterday. We can talk about that too, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And I was a rule follower, not normal for most salespeople. So a friend of mine whispered in my ear about an opportunity at a really small company. And I thought, well, I don't know what I don't know. And off I went. And after 2 interviews, they offered me the position. They doubled my base salary plus commissions, gave me a director title. I could just see the potential, right? So I negotiated a vacation up front because I'd already paid for it. So there I was, 6 weeks into the job, doing what I thought at the time was being a good employee, right? I do not advocate this for my clients now, but I was staying in touch with my boss, the CEO, while I was on vacation. And I got an email asking my opinion on something, and I replied right back. And I waited because he usually replies right back, and he didn't. 12 hours later, we came in from dinner and cocktails, and ding, there goes my phone. Carol Boston, you've got mail. Here's what it said. It said, Carol, comma, that's what you really think? And it had 5 question marks behind it. Then it said, don't come into this office when your vacation is over. You're done here. What? I don't get what? I just got fired in an email? Like, are you kidding me?
Oh my gosh.
This is a true story for an opinion I was asked for. I came back and had an interview the very next day, and I was flown all over this country for months and months and months, sometimes 3 and 4 interviews deep. And I thought, how ironic that I could sell $70 million worth of business for somebody else, and I can't close a deal to get myself a job. Now, faith is my foundation. I was basically depleting my 401k. I did this for so long. And why is that? One of the things that you know about me is my next book coming out is you can't read the label when you're inside a jar, right? And we're all in a jar. I was in a jar. I saw myself as a buttoned up sales professional. That's all I could see. So faith is my foundation, and that's where I always go. So there I was many months into this process, and I'm kind of yelling at God, I guess. I was like, God, look, you created me. You know, I'm not cut out to be an entrepreneur. I do not want to own my own business. You got to help me find a good job. And literally 2 weeks to the day from that prayer, out of the blue, I get an email from a woman that I met one time out of town at a conference. She and I must have chatted 30 minutes. She gifted me a $3,500 ticket to go to Los Angeles to study at Guerrilla Business School. So I tell people that my God has a sense of humor because Guerrilla Business School is a foundational school for entrepreneurs. Tell God your plan, and he just laughs, right?
Right.
And so I figured, I don't know what I don't know, and what I'm doing isn't working. So off I went. And that was the very first thing I learned is you can't read the label when you're inside a jar. And the second thing I learned was about empowering questions, and I was stunned at their power, and I was determined to master them. So I've been working to master them for the last 6 years. And I studied leadership and empowering questions under the best. Nirka, Michael Strassner, John Maxwell, Lisa Nichols, all of the best. And yet I stayed in my jar. This is in May of 2015. Fast forward to 2017, 2.5 years.
Mhm.
Folks, I'm known as the reluctant entrepreneur. You may not know that about me either. My coach is like, that's your next book. I am. I'm the reluctant entrepreneur.
That's a great title.
Yep, it's true. It's a true story. So 2.5 years into this, I've gotten 2 coaching certifications. I'm still holding on to 3 products and services, very unique, that I'm trying to sell into HR at large corporations. And I learned a big lesson in that 4th quarter, that there's a big difference between being committed and being convicted. You see, I thought I was committed to what I was doing, but people decommit every day, don't they? They say, I'm in this marriage for life, until the day I'm not. But when you're convicted, you will not rest until you get it done. And you understand that your comfort and your convenience and your conviction don't live on the same block. They're not even in the same zip code, right? Discomfort is the price of admission to a meaningful life.
Oh, hold up right there. Boom. Say it again, girl. Say it again.
Discomfort is the price of admission to a meaningful life.
Oh my gosh. And that's, yes. Okay, keep going.
And I had to get super uncomfortable. So that's when I got rid of those 3 services and decided I had to begin looking at myself as a business owner. And oftentimes the very path we're meant to be on is the one we fear the most. Nobody in my family had ever owned their own businesses. They thought I'd lost my mind. I thought I'd lost my mind too. And somebody just give me a job, right? I was trying so hard to stay with what was familiar. But here's another thing for your audience. What's familiar is not always comfortable. But we will stay there because it's familiar.
Is it? Why do we do that? Yes. Like, because the certainty's there. We know what to expect, right?
Yes. Even if we don't like it. Think about it. Think about,
don't like it.
think about the woman who keeps going back to the person who's beating her up, and she tells herself, but he only beats me up on the weekend when he drinks.
Yeah.
What if I leave and I get beat up every night? She can't reframe that and say, well, what if I leave and I never get hit again?
Right.
So the knowledge and the certainty that it's only going to happen on the weekends, she will stay. That does not mean she's comfortable. It's familiar.
Right. And that's staying in the jar, right?
Oh, totally.
Yes.
Totally.
Okay.
Everyone, that's a common thread amongst every one of my clients. They're all committed to their jar. They just don't know they are.
But that's a human thing, right? I mean, not being committed to the jar, but being in the jar. Like, we're all in the jar, right?
Everybody's in their jar. And that's why I believe everybody needs a good coach, right? Because your opportunities that you can't see are right outside your jar. And oftentimes you can't see them because you're focusing on what isn't working.
Right. Because that's what's right in front of you. And
Yes.
We need to look at what's possible.
So that's where the Queen of Reframe comes in, and empowering questions, because empowering questions help you reframe from focusing on what isn't working. Think about it. What you focus on expands. So if you're focused on what isn't working, you're going to continue to get more stuff that isn't working. I want you to think about that. What you focus on expands. I think I told you that the other day, right? How do people make mountains out of molehills? Was that you? They think about it, talk about it, tell their friend. Think about it, talk about it, tell their spouse. They make it this big thing.
Right. What are people talking about? What are you talking about all the time? What do you keep conjuring up? What's not working, or what relationship is causing you strife in your life? And I think sometimes, that's where you get with your friends, and oh my gosh, guess who did this? Or here's my business and I'm not making the money I want to make, or I'm not getting the clients I want, or whatever it might be. It's, and I know you talk a lot about language too, and being able to be in a space of creating, right?
Absolutely. I believe that we create as we speak. I'll tell you there's something else you don't know about me. So back in August 2nd of 2018, I did my very first workshop at Kaiser University. And then fast forward a year later, on July 30th, I sold my home of 26 years, thought I was going to live there forever. God had other plans. And God saw fit for me to move 9 times in 18 months.
9 times in 18 months.
After living in the same house for 26 years, telling everybody I love stability, I love my routine, right? And when I look back, the title of that talk was prophetic. The title of the talk that I gave, it was a 90-minute workshop, was Leadership: Navigating a Successful Course in the Winds of Change. And then a year later, I began to live it out. So I absolutely believe that we create as we speak. And it's not just what we always speak out loud, right? It's the inside voice. that people are so unaware of. I was working with a client this morning and she was telling me of a challenging situation. She goes, there you were in my head saying, no, Crystal, you're choosing. I get that a lot from my
Yes.
clients. You're always in my head, Carol, but that's a good thing. And so
Yes.
that's what put me on this path. But there's been 3 pivotal times actually. And I'm actually experiencing a 4th right now where I trusted in someone else's vision for me until I could believe it for myself. And one was how I got a tennis scholarship, because I didn't start playing tennis till I was 15. I started very late.
Really? That is
Yes.
fantastic. I love that.
You want to hear that? You want to hear that badass story?
Yeah, I do. I do want to hear it. I was
I
thinking that you played like at 5 years old and you've been playing all your life.
I've never even had a private lesson.
What?
Mm-mm.
Carol.
We didn't have the money for it. You know,
Wow.
I'm able to find some really good business lessons with that experience though. So what happened was I grew up between 2 brothers in the country. I was really good at tackle football, baseball, and basketball. As a matter of fact, when I was in 6th grade, I was the first girl to play Little League hardball with the boys. Now in the Deep South, this did not sit well with my mother because there's rules, spoken and unspoken, about how little girls are supposed to behave. And I was definitely not following the rules, right? But at least I had a cheerleader in my dad, right? He was on the sidelines, go Carol, right? He was all. So when I was 13, my dad said, let's go play tennis. And I said, what's that? Well, it's like baseball. You can play it. Come on. So off we go. And after about 30 minutes, I walked up to the net and I put the racket down and I looked at him. I glared at him. And I said, don't you ever ask me to do this again. You brought me out here to embarrass me. And I walked off. I was 13. And 2 years later, I was on the swim team. And I noticed that my peer, now I was raised in a very competitive household. And I noticed that my peers would go down and play tennis. So it was like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And that's how I started at the age of 15. So I got a racket, a cheap racket. You're probably too young to remember the old wooden, like Dunlop, John McEnroe, the small
remember
rackets.
my parents had it.
Great. Am I that old? Thank you
would
so much.
them. That's so horrible.
So what I would do is we didn't have money for lessons. And I knew that my brain was a sponge. I knew that. And I would go sit on the sidelines and I would listen to the pro coach the other kids and I would absorb everything that I could absorb. And I knew that if I could get the people better than me to play with me, I'd get better. Now I want you to think about how that translates into business, right? And I was 15. I recently left a mastermind and the guy was all upset. Why are you leaving? I said, I'm the smartest person in the room. I'm not getting anything out of this. That's not why. Well, it's true, right? You want to be in a room with people who are smarter than you, who've done more than you, who are ahead of your game.
Yeah.
And so that's how I started. And I worked my ass off and I actually got on the high school team doing it just like that. And I played number 6 and the top 6 get to play singles. So this was really good. Now here's where one of the blessings came in. Every one of the other girls on the team all started playing when they were 5. They all went to Piermont Oaks Country Club and they all had a private coach, Jerry Montgomery. And Jerry took a liking to me. So he would do things like, hey, Carol, I'm going to be working on Lauren's forehand. You want to come to the country club and return forehands? Because he knew I was going to listen to what he was teaching her, right? And I'm like, hell yeah. So off I'd go. And then one time he was working on Kay McDaniel's serve. Kay McDaniel, she was an ex-LSU Tiger like me. She was top 10 in the world at the time. And I'm 5'8" something now. So maybe I was about 5'6" back then. And she was about 6'1". And we were practicing on the indoor courts, which are very slick. They're fast. It was wintertime. And he just called me up. He said, you want to come work on returning Kay's serve? I'm like, yeah. Now, I guess you would say this was badass. I refused to stand behind the baseline. I was going to be inside the baseline to work on my reflexes. Edna, I came home with so many bruises. My mother asked me what was wrong with me.
Oh my God.
I couldn't get out of the way fast enough, but I just kept doing it and kept doing it. So fast forward end of my junior year, my dad, who's very Southern, looks at me and he says, now, Carol, you need to get a job or you need to get an academic scholarship. I can't send you to college. And I said, but Dad, I'm going to get a tennis scholarship. And he paused and he looked down his nose at me. And he said, like I said, Carol, get a job.
Oh my God.
Or get an academic scholarship. You know, so I talk to people today because especially entrepreneurs, they want their family and their friends to be the one to support them. But here's the thing, God didn't give them your vision. He gave it to you, right?
Yes.
So it's your responsibility to surround yourself with the people that are going to give you a hand up or push your butt up, right? When the going gets tough.
Yes.
But Jerry had a vision for me. So I trusted in his vision and I just kept practicing. And at the end of my senior year, we won the National High School Championship. Can you imagine? I got to be on a team with these other 5 girls that have been playing forever. We won the Nationals in San Antonio. That was really cool.
Wow.
And I got 3 full scholarship offers. They weren't to the schools I wanted to go to. I'm an LSU Fighting Tiger. I should have my cup right here.
Yeah,
And
where's that cup?
I poured it. I've got plenty. I can grab one. I don't know why I poured it in this one today, but I got a half scholarship to LSU. So I took out a student loan because that's where I wanted to go. That's where my doubles partner was going. And off I went. And guess what happened? Started off playing number 6 again. I was ecstatic, right? And now these people were a lot better than me. So I got to the end of my freshman year, and here's one of my 7 steps in my system is raise your game, how to become a professional athlete in your business. And one of those steps is you have to show up every day, no matter how you feel. You show up every day. You can't run a business based on feeling, right? Feelings are fickle and they come and they go. And the second thing I teach is you have to be willing to practice when everybody else is resting. Doesn't mean you become a workaholic. But that summer, the rest of the team, they all took the summer off to rest. I went and got on the 21 and under tour. I didn't have a lot of money, so I was literally hitching rides. This is back in the day when you could hitch rides.
Yeah.
And I worked hard enough to make sure that I was a top seed, because if you were a top seed, then you got free housing. What an amazing summer, right? And I practiced with the men who hit the ball a lot harder and faster, and I just worked. And I came back in August for tryouts, all the same people on the team, except we had 1 new freshman. And I went from playing number 6 to playing number 2. And then by the end of that semester, I was playing number 1. And then I played number 1 and was team captain for the rest of my career at LSU.
Oh my gosh, that is fantastic. Wow, what a story. So it's really about the hustle and like getting in there and doing the extra work and showing up when nobody else is showing up and borrowing that vision. I love that line that you said about God didn't give other people your vision, right? That he gave it to you for a reason, but there's other people that will believe in you and looking for those resources. And I think one of the things that like we were talking about earlier with entrepreneurs, and when you're starting, even in your personal life, is we're always looking at the reality of what's happening in front of us, and we get stuck on what's not working versus going towards the vision of what it is that you want and staying there. And again, Carol, this is where you help me, because a lot of times we are doing things alone. We are by ourselves and we can get all stuck in our jar, with the thinking. And as soon as somebody's just kind of pulls you out of the jar with their perspective, something so simple can just pull you out. I remember the question you said, when you get stuck, just keep asking yourself, what else is possible? Yeah. What else is possible? That is like your line. I have said it over and over. And Carol said to me, say it 6 to 8 times a day or more, and don't answer the question. And that was a part of that month. Because there was a gap. I had to figure it out. What else is possible? And I just kept seeing it around the house. And it was amazing what can show up.
Empowering questions, there's 2 caveats with them. One is you're not to try to figure it out because it's outside of your jar. If you could figure it out, you wouldn't need to ask the question, right?
Right.
And the second thing is you can't be attached to the outcome. Can't be attached to how the answer shows up.
Yes.
And what else is possible is the most powerful of all empowering questions. Absolutely. And so that's why I told you, just say them out loud, go back to what you're doing, because they create Oprah aha moments. They cause curiosity. They cause you to ponder. One of the great things, and I know you were after me a couple of weeks ago about putting together a course for parents and their kids, right? They take the emotion out of the conversation.
Yes.
How many people would like to have more conversations and less arguments, right? Because the ego gets involved.
Right.
So they're super, super powerful questions. So I'll just go ahead and give your audience one. And that is, an empowering question never, ever, ever starts with what, Edna?
Why?
Exactly. It never starts with why.
Right.
Why brings in defensiveness, which brings in the ego, which brings in emotions. And when emotions go up, intelligence goes down. It's true for every human being. You
mentioned earlier, there were these pivotal moments. What was another one for you along the way?
In 1986, I was going through a divorce. Yes, I was married to a man, like I was supposed to in the good old Southern Bible Belt. And my car caught on fire. I'd been a tennis teaching professional. I knew I didn't want to do that my entire life. My car caught on fire and the insurance wouldn't pay for it. So there I am going through a divorce, don't have a job because I don't want to teach tennis anymore. And I call up my dad. Now my dad's been in the insurance business for 30 years. I tell him my story and he's like, Carol, He's really got a heavy accent, right? He goes, Carol, now you know I ain't that in kind of insurance, but if you come home, I got somebody to help you get a car, even without a job. I said, okay. So I go to Shreveport and I get a brand new car, never had a brand new car. And I went over to Dallas, Texas, and I was living with my second cousin. She was head of personnel for Neiman Marcus. And she taught me how to buy the Navy suit and the pearls and the heels and all that, get my resume together. This is when was a pivotal time because the government had just broken up AT&T and all the baby bells. The monopoly was, the competition was fierce, right? That's where MCI came from and Sprint and all these companies. So I got hired by a company called Metro Media Communications. And the lady who hired me said, will you come in tomorrow and meet my boss, the vice president? I'm like, sure. So I come in and she interviews me. She sits back and she kind of looks me up and down. And she says, great, I'll see you in Miami in a week. And I said, no, you won't. Now I needed a job. I said, look, you have an office in Dallas. I'm interviewing in Dallas. My friends from the tennis tour are in Dallas and my family's 3.5 hours away. I'm working in Dallas. That was pretty ballsy, right? I needed a job.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
And she just calmly looked me up and down again. And she said, but I need somebody really strong in Miami in a week. I said, how do you know I'm strong? I've never done this before. And she said, just trust me and be there in a week. And so I did. And it led to a almost 27-year successful sales career.
Wow, that was it.
Yep.
That was the beginning. Oh my gosh, that is incredible. Wow. Let me ask you this. Where do you dig in to trust that move? Like, how did you know to go there, really?
I don't know that I knew that time, but I knew that I knew the next time. I'm going to be candid with you. Maybe it was just intuitive.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe it was the way she spoke to me. It's been so many years ago. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just drove right past my parents' house, went to my girlfriend's house, said, I'm moving to Miami. You want to come? Went down to Baton Rouge, loaded up my car and came here. I knew nobody. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything about my job. I knew nothing. I just showed up.
I remember when I was in college, I was looking for a job. I believe I was working at a TV station and I wanted to leave. And I was just like applying everywhere I could. I was like, just get me out of here. I'm done. My time is over. And I had gotten an interview in Virginia at a TV station and they were going to fly me out. I am 23 years old, maybe 22. Like somebody's going to pay for a flight. Like I felt like, oh my God, like only CEOs like get offers like that, right? Where somebody's going to fly you out to be a technical director at a news station is what I was going for. And I said yes because of like the whole experience. And I did it and I went and they wined and dined me and took me to lunch. And I'm like, I'm like in my early 20s, just trying to get a job. And I built the relationship was nice with the boss and like they wanted me. And I came home and I knew that was not where I was supposed to be. And just inside it, but I felt at the same time like I was supposed to do it. They had treated me so nicely. It was actually a job, that would have paid me okay. I just knew that wasn't the station. I was going to get stuck in news and it wasn't where I wanted to be. And we lived in Pennsylvania at the time. So I look back at some of those times, and again, you were young there too, in that scenario with the job. And it's like, where did we dig in? Because as we are more badass in our life, I think sometimes you trust other people. Sometimes you believe other people's vision for you, not their vision, but they believe in you before you believe in yourself. So right. You go with that. And other times it is, gut feeling, like I'm not supposed to be there. And I'm so happy I didn't. I had a great career in that space here, but it's right. Just, sometimes that chatter in our minds outside of saying, oh, you should do this, or I know better for you, or my friend's doing it, or whatever it might be for a young person, can muddy the waters on you being able to hear your inner voice. Don't you think, Carol?
I do. But I think part of that, though, is people don't realize how much they erode their own self-trust.
Yes.
You see,
so early on, too, right?
Yeah. When you don't keep your word to yourself, it's insidious. You erode self-trust. If somebody, I think I shared that with you. If I told you 5 times in a row I was going to do something and you believed me, and I didn't do it, and then I told you a 6th time I was going to do it, you're gonna be like, yeah, right, Carol, right? You've already lost trust in me. How many times do we not keep our word to ourselves? Yeah, we erode self-trust. We just don't see it because it's not in front of us, but it's insidious.
Right. And you know what? You and I were talking about that because like you said earlier, structure for me is like handcuffs on my hands. I'm like, don't put me in a box, Carol. Like, I have to tell you, do you guys want to hear an assignment that Carol made me do? Because I will not write everything. I will write appointments on my planner. If it's the dentist for the kids, if it's a phone call with Carol, if it's, an appointment with a friend, whatever we're doing, networking, whatever it might be. But then in the gaps is where I need to get my work done. And I was finding that I was wasting time. I felt like I was doing work, but I wasn't being productive. And
Right.
Carol said, Edna, I want you to write your schedule down in 15-minute increments. No, 30 minutes. It was 30 minutes. 30.
It was
Sorry.
30. Yeah, you
It
would
was
have died
30.
you would have died at 15.
Yes, I would have died at 15. It was 30. I was dying at 30.
Yeah.
And I had to put my calendar from the time I woke up every 30 minutes what I was doing. And the first day I felt like a badass because when I was done, I had kept my word to myself, like Carol was saying. And then the next day I did like till noon. Okay. But it felt good. And I remember like getting into that feeling of I am honoring my schedule. I am honoring my goals. I am honoring what it is that I set out. If I want to be a badass, there's a process to get there. I can't just willy-nilly go waste all my time and say, I hope I get to be that level, right? And so I'm not perfect at it. And Carol's calling me out on it, but that's where I have to get out of my jar, so to speak, and look at my schedule and start working like a CEO. And
Yes.
that's what you're helping me do by some little task, like scheduling your planner 30 minutes at a time. You guys, like that's the power of staying stuck where you are and shifting so much that you grow 33% in a month. Like seriously.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That was amazing. Amazing. I have goosebumps on that task. I don't know. I'm going to have to pass that along to one of my clients, maybe.
Go right ahead. And, I believe that simple is doable.
Yes.
If I had given you something really complex, you'd have been like, really?
Right.
But you didn't like it, but it was doable.
Yeah.
But you made a business decision and not an emotional decision. And I saw your Facebook Live. You're like, my business code, right? Right. And I'm like laughing. But even yesterday, after our session, look at all you accomplished. And my reply back to you last night was, yeah, laugh out loud. Look what a little structure got you. How quickly. But structure gives you freedom. And one of the things I think that really struck you was when I told you what can be measured can be managed.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't manage your time because it wasn't measured. You really didn't know where it was going, how it was being spent. You shared with me a call that was supposed to be 15 minutes was an hour and 45.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's easy.
Yes.
It's easy to do when you don't have any parameters.
Yes. And I keep thinking spontaneity is like this great creative place to be, that if you get the impulse for the idea, and in places it can be, but in business, you've got to have those boundaries to be able to get you to where you want to be. And when I'm talking I have some friends and we've shared, we're kind of in the same boat in some cases, but this is what I go back to. If we have a mission and a purpose while we're here, and we're clear on what we're supposed to be doing now, and oh my God, I have this amazing idea and I want to do this, then we have to structure ourselves to get there, because nobody else, like Carol said, you said, the vision is mine. It's not for you or for anybody else. Right. That is mine. But if I don't execute on the vision, I don't get to make a difference in the world. That is the biggest thing. If I don't structure my time, I don't get to put my voice out there. I don't get to, have my vision come to life. And when you have a coach that can help you get out of your own way to be able to do that, you guys, there are some changes that are happening already just because I have a coach, right? Who can call me out on those things. And it was uncomfortable for me. It was so uncomfortable. And I'm like, sweet, because when that happens, I know I'm in the right space. And I know I'm going to get more of that from you, Carol.
You will. Absolutely.
I did ask you for an exclusive, a story that she hasn't shared, because Carol, is everywhere. You will see her out there. If you're really looking in the coaching space and personal growth and that space, you will see Carol Boston out there. But so please, share something. I don't know what it is. So I want to be like, share something you haven't shared before.
As a matter of fact, I was on a coaching call with my social media VA, who's also a client of mine. And I mentioned that I was coming on your show, and that yesterday you told me, I said, she leaned into the camera, I want an exclusive. And I said, I really had to stop and think. I have a lot of stories and people have heard a lot of them. And so I shared with her, I said something, and her eyes flew open. She goes, I didn't know that about you. I said, yes, you did. You don't know the story, but you knew that about me. And she's
Hmm.
like, she goes, I knew you lived through rape, Carol. And you haven't even told me that whole story, but I never heard this one.
Tell
So
us.
I went through rape my first month at college, my
Your
very first month.
first month at college.
Very challenging, very challenging. But fast forward a couple of years and a couple of months, I'd been dating this guy, and through that situation, unhealthy. I mean, I can look back now, but that's what it was. And I lost a ton of weight. I lost so much weight. That's what he wanted me to do, right? You would crack up. I had long blonde hair too. I'm such a short hair girl. What we do for other people is amazing. My dad sent me pictures. He cleaned out of a closet, and I was like, holy mackerel.
Wow, I want to see those pictures. Oh my
I,
goodness.
I had amazing hair. My dad had pictures of me when I was playing playing tennis at college, and they would French braid my hair. I
Oh
was
my
like, I'm cutting my hair off, and one of the girls will let me French braid it, so you don't have to worry with it. I'm like, of course you get a sunburn on your head, right? I'm like, what the hell?
I was a French braider on the track team when on the bus going to meets and stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
So they took me off the team, literally took me off the team, and put me on
And
a
why was
special.
this? Why did they take you off the team?
I was too thin. I was just too thin. I was super, super thin. I'd lost a
And
lot.
why were you thin? What was happening? Was it
It
stress?
was no, it was the relationship with this guy.
Oh, really? So you were in
Yeah,
a relationship. He wanted you to lose weight and look a certain way, and you're losing all this weight, and then they pull you off the team.
took me off the team.
Okay, I'm with you.
So I'm like, yeah, this is not good. And in college, when you're dating somebody steady or whatever, back in the day, they called it being pinned, like you wore their fraternity pin. So he and I had this meeting one night, and I gave him his pin back. And I said, I'm not interested in dating anybody else, but I don't have the time that you require for this right now. My dad's not paying my way to college. I have to keep my scholarship. And I mean, I was on the dean's list. I had to keep my grades and all of that. And he said, okay. And I thought everything was fine. So they had me on this special heavy weightlifting program, and they wanted me to eat all these milkshakes. I'm not a big milk person. So anyway, it was a Friday night. And at LSU, when there was no home football game, campus totally empties, totally empties. Normally there's about 35,000 people on campus. So I had borrowed a friend's bike, and I went to their weight room. They didn't even let me go to tennis practice. So I go to the weight room, I do my weights. I'm tired. It's 7 o'clock, it's nighttime. And I drive back. I don't drive, I ride the bicycle back. And I was living in this gorgeous sorority house. If you ever go to Baton Rouge, you've got to go down Fraternity and Sorority Row. Big antebellum home, 3-story columns on a lake, housed about 51 women.
Wow.
Do you know my voice is actually shaking? Interesting. So I parked the bicycle, and I'm walking by the column to get in the house, and I got grabbed from behind. And I got drug across the yard, and I couldn't see who was attacking me. And they drugged me across the street and started trying to drown me in the lake.
Oh my gosh.
And it was the guy that I'd been dating.
Oh my gosh.
And I was already weak. I mean, I was major underweight. I'd been lifting weights. I had no strength. Nothing came out of my mouth, and I'm drowning in this lake.
Carol.
And a car pulls up. See, I'm supposed to be here. I've been through some stuff.
Yes, yes.
And a car pulls up. And I'm telling you, there wasn't 3 people in that sorority house, and there's normally like 51. And the car stopped and shined its brights, and some guy got out of the car. And at that moment, he let me go. And I couldn't even run. I mean, I was just walking as fast as I can. It's freaking cold. It was like 40 degrees outside. And I get into the sorority house, and I really just didn't know what to do. I was in shock. I was in absolute shock.
Oh my gosh.
So I made it up to the 3rd floor, and there was the only girl that was up there, whatever, teenagers we were. And she was on the tennis team, and she looked at me in shock. And she goes, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I know how I was raised. I know what this would do as far as my scholarship is concerned. If I come out about this, I didn't know what I was going to do. And he wouldn't leave the front door.
He was still there?
Oh, yeah. So I was up all night, and I called the athletic director the next morning. She was the one who had recruited me to LSU. And I told her the situation, and I called my best buddy, Lee, and they came and got me, and I went into hiding. I moved out of the sorority house and I went into hiding. Lee Kicker, there were three of us in criminal, my degree's in criminal law. And so there was three of us and we had all the same courses together. We were known as the Three Musketeers, me and Lee and Mario. So Lee was going to class every day to get, the only people that knew where I was the athletic director, Lee, and my two roommates. And they didn't say anything, but they would tell me that this guy kept coming to the sorority house.
And he was a student. Okay.
Yeah.
And they couldn't just
And-
find him and question him?
I didn't report it,
Okay.
even after
Because you were
speaking to,
scared. Got
even
it.
after speaking to the athletic director, I did not report it. He was showing up at every one of my classes. Lee would tell me, everyone. He even was so ballsy that he went to the athletic director's office
Get out.
and said, you have to tell me where she is. And she basically ripped him a new one and told him to stay away or she would call the police. And there I was in this position of having been number one on the team leader. I couldn't get out the front door. I didn't go anywhere. And I knew I couldn't tell my parents.
What would
Just
have
from-
happened if you told your parents? Do you think?
I think my mom would have said, what did you do to provoke it?
Mm.
Right. So I was on the verge of dropping out. Think about it. Number one on the team, worked that hard to get there. Dean's List. Lee kept bringing me over pints of ice cream, and I couldn't even eat food. I was just like, I just couldn't eat.
Just in fear. Were you in fear?
Yeah.
Okay.
And shock, probably just shock. I had
Right.
never experienced anything like that. And to think that someone who professed to love me is the one that did it, right?
Right. Right.
And I didn't know till much later how challenging it was for my friend Lee, because Lee was in love with me and I had no idea. Unrequited love. I always thought we were just friends. He never said anything, but his roommate told me that he would go home and sharpen his knives and clean his guns. And he said, if he gets anywhere near her, that's how he felt. Right?
Wow.
Yeah. So it was just a really, really difficult time. And I wish I could tell you the exact pivotal moment, the thought that went through my head, but I didn't. And I said, I have to get up and conquer this. I have to get up and conquer this. And I knew that every class I had, Lee would be right there with me. And I just wasn't going to go anywhere without him or my teammates.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a while. But by the end of the semester, I was back up playing number one. Team captain, put the weight back on that I needed, got focused, and stayed number one for the next 2 years.
Wow. And no charges pressed? Oh my goodness.
Mm-mm.
Wow. So how does a situation like that, what do you do with that in your life? Having a situation like that so young? How do you?
I don't know that I really processed it or truly dealt with it
Mhm.
until many years later. I was in therapy in
Mhm.
my early 30s, to be
Mhm.
honest with you. I think I compartmentalized it.
Sure.
And I was the child that was always expected to bring honor to the family. That was a big driver.
Uh-huh.
And my mother's she was all about how things looked. She was about pretense. She
Mhm.
wanted people to believe that she lived behind a white picket fence with a perfect husband and 3 perfect kids and a dog and a cat. And coming out with anything like that, even when I was raped, never told them.
That, what you just described, is what makes you badass, Carol. It really, and being so young, having so much fear and still doing it anyway, finding a way to persevere. That is badass.
Thank you.
That is incredible. Seriously. And I'm so sorry you had to go through something like that. And yet those are the situations where we find out how strong we are, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's awesome.
What does Lisa Nichols say? Sometimes your greatest blessings come wrapped up in sandpaper.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They teach you who you are.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
You got your exclusive. I've never
Girl. Woo!
never told that story out in public.
I
Ever.
am grateful that you shared that, because I know somebody is watching right now that needed to hear that. I know
Mhm.
that without a shadow of a doubt. So thank you for your courage in sharing that story, truly. And here's one question: what scares you today? Do you have fears today?
I think when I started out on this entrepreneurial journey, I was very afraid of being successful.
There's another one.
Yep, very afraid of being successful. I didn't want the exposure, the accountability. When they put you on a pedestal, you fall further. I was just, "Look, can somebody else just run my company and let me coach," kind of
I
thing.
know. Anything else you want anybody to know about you or working with you, or I don't know, any tips?
I'm really, really good at getting people into effective action for immediate results. If you're stuck, if nothing else I've learned this spring just from that Snowmageddon call, I'm really, really good at that. You're an example. The lady who had wanted to be an entrepreneur for 35 years, and I got her into action in 24 hours. I have another lady who signed up with me who had been with another big time coach. She's 75 years old. I think I told you her story. She's 75 years old and said that other coach just kept screaming at her to get her into action. And she said, "But you got me into action." Even my daughter doesn't believe what I did in 2 weeks. I love that. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I would tell you, take the next step, trust in the process. You don't have to have the whole thing figured out. I tell people all the time that I believe God gave me a lamplight just for my feet. I don't need to see the whole picture. I
Mhm.
probably couldn't take in the whole picture because I think the plans that are for me are greater than anything I can imagine right now. And it would be overwhelming.
Yes.
So it's just trust in the process, take the next step, trust in the process.
I love that.
That's how I got here.
Girl, I think you have like so much more ahead of you than anything you've shared already. And that might sound like incredible, but I really do believe you're really special and special to me and special to so many people in helping us get to our dream and our vision. And I think who you are as a human being outside of coaching is just really unique. And I think you have so much to offer this world and you're doing it and you're doing it. You're not afraid to be Carol Boston. And I'm so grateful for you to be the badass that you are and that you said yes to me today. So thank you so much.
Blessings to you. I appreciate it.
Yes. Connect with Carol on social media, and even better, get on her calendar. Schedule your Snowmageddon 90-minute phone call with Carol and watch the magic happen. Stay tuned for the next episode in the Badass series.